Liam sourced this tweet for us. It says, what characterizes, quote, economists of post-Keynesian or MMT persuasion is not only their strong political bias, but that they're so fundamentally uninterested in how the economy works, their, quote, economics is centered around discussing how policy can or should manipulate macro aggregates.
Yeah, my brother, it's called the political economy.
Yes. This is one of the most annoying tendencies of neoliberals, which is pretending that they are outside of the realm of ideology.
Yeah.
Which is like everyone else but us is ideological. We are not an ideological project. We are simply economics as a science, quote unquote.
This is why people who claim economics is a hard science, you do not need to listen to anything they say after that sentence.
Yeah. And also, like, how policy can or should manipulate macro aggregates. It's like economics that does not influence macro aggregates does not exist as policy.
Yeah. That is the point.
Yeah.
This is like when people look at politicians and say, I hate that he's playing politics.
Yeah.
Yes. That's the point. Like, yeah, if you're in a capitalist economy, the reason that we have this government is to, like, mediate the economy and to make sure that the economy, like, sustains itself for whoever your political party is for. Whether it be for, like, workers, in which case you're not trying to sustain a capitalist government, or for capital, in which case you are. And then some people are just like, fuck it, let's ramp up capital can do whatever it wants. In like a death drive, we want to kill everyone way. And then some people will be like, oh yeah, maybe we should mediate capital to help sustain capitalism. And neoliberals are like, actually, I'm above that.
Yeah.
Take the guardrails off.
Also, the absolute fucking audacity of this guy to accuse neo-Keynesians or whatever of having a strong political bias when he is a fellow at the Mises Institute.
I haven't even heard of those words. What the fuck is the Mises Institute?
Mises is like one of the fathers of neoliberalism, a far right economic figure.
Yeah.
This is a libertarian think tank, basically.
Jesus Christ.
He's a guy that says, like, market signals should do everything, but also even he said that the government should, like, interact with the market to change macroeconomic things, saying that things like climate change are not priced in, so you should put carbon taxes on shit. And I'm willing to bet that this guy does not like carbon taxes.
The description of the Mises Institute in and of itself is like the Ludwig von Mises Institute for Austrian economics. Literally just the Austrian school, the think tank.
Yes, but also the absolute, like, it's so rich that neoliberals are like, we're evidence-based. When Mises and Hayek explicitly reject evidence as useful to economic study.
Yeah. And also, like, I think we were saying evidence-based is like, all right, you said that this would not actually make inequality that much worse and would make things develop way faster, and now GDP growth comes slower and inequality has gone up. Is anyone going to address that evidence that your political movement has failed? Completely. 2008 happened.
Yeah, it's
politically biased. Yeah.
What an idiot.
Politics is politically biased, buddy. I've got news.
If you listen to this and you have a Twitter account, go ratio this guy, please. Go harass this guy. Go get him fired from his fake job, all that shit. Anyways, Liam.
Force this guy to go on Twitch and play Disco Elysium, and then when he makes decisions that you don't like, send him a picture of his house.
Yeah, I support that. Send him a picture of his house. Don't do anything else. Go on Twitter and send him a picture of his house.
Is this you?
Just walking by, checking it.
Okay.
I figure I should do a quick letter from the editor here. This is playing on a joke that we all watched on YouTube before recording this episode. Please do not harass or dox anyone, especially for the reasons of our podcast. We all watched a movie yesterday, The Act of Killing.
Great flick.
Which was pretty phenomenal. I did find it a little weird watching, because usually when I watch movies with friends, I love to make fun of the movie. But then you realize that you do have, like, you're watching effectively, like, Heydrich and Himmler and, like, all of these guys that have actively perpetuated a genocide of leftists in their country.
So why don't we summarize what the movie is first?
Yeah.
It is a documentary filmed in 2011, released 2012, that follows a small group of men who participated in a wider project to exterminate members of Indonesia's Communist Party, which in the 1960s was the third largest communist party in the world after the governing parties in the Soviet Union and China. They had 4 million members, and under the direction of the Indonesian government, with the support and co-direction of the United States, murdered over 2 million communists and suspected communists.
Yeah.
And even not people who are ethnic, and then they just said they're communists, so
but also,
they deserve to die.
Yes, basically they did the Jewish Bolshevik conspiracy theory, but the Southeast Asian version, which is that Chinese Bolshevik conspiracy theory. Right? The idea that the Chinese are, like, genetically communist. Yeah. Which is a anti-Semitism that targets the Chinese is, like, a common trope in Southeast Asia, including Indonesia.
And, like, anti-Semitism in the way that, like, if you think of, like, the tropes of anti-Semitism in the West, of, like, cabal of financiers who controls things in the background.
Yeah.
Those sort of, like, anti-Semitic conspiracies are also, like, in the Southeast Asian context, applied to ethnic Chinese.
Yeah, and the idea that there's, like, a degenerating social force that backs communism to destroy the nation and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So this documentary follows these low-level thugs who helped orchestrate this extermination campaign against communist and ethnic minorities in the 1960s Indonesia, and it follows them as they make a series of short films that are financed by the director and production company of this movie. So the movie sort of forces them to confront their past actions.
I think it might be like a single, not a series of short films, but I think a single film.
I think they are connected, but we only get like disconnected chunks of it because we're only supposed to according to their film.
I don't think they were they went from mafia style shit to like
they were short films, and over the course of the movie, the director and the production company give them more and more money to make these, so they get higher and higher production value.
On that note, what was the production? You looked at the
$1 million.
Right? It cost $1 million, and
then it made like
$700K.
I guess you don't really need that movie to like break I don't know records.
It's not made to be super profitable.
Yeah.
When it was also released, it was also apparently made free for
Indonesians.
All Indonesians to stream.
Oh, and is that why the government started? Like,
the government didn't like it because they realized it made them look bad to international partners.
Even though we'll get to that because there's someone. Okay, there's a high level person in the government in the movie who actually says something like that.
There are several. So the movie, it follows this guy called Anwar Congo and his close friends who he did the genocide with. Anwar Congo was not an orchestrator of this genocide. He's more analogous to a single member of the SS than he is to Heydrich or Eichmann.
Yeah, he was more of like your Einsatzgruppen foot soldier than
So
you said they followed more than
your
one
police
person,
division
commander. He was the most. Would you say it was like psychologically interesting?
Yes. Because subject. Anwar Congo, who's like sort of the main subject of this documentary, goes through this psychological journey where he starts unrepentant and believes they did the right thing orchestrating this genocide, and by the end he realizes that he is a despicable person. And that causes a psychological reckoning. And at the end of the last shot of the movie is basically him having a panic attack, vomiting at the sight of the crimes he committed.
And it starts and ends in this one position. And at the start, he's demonstrating what he would do to quickly, conveniently, and cleanly massacre people in a way that wasn't too inconvenient for his schedule. And the movie ends off with him in the same place, just like dry heaving over like realizing what he's done. And the film kind of follows the blend of them creating their own short films that are very like artistic and like stylized in the way they went about things, and is clearly them trying to show what they did as like cool and awesome and like, you know, it's clearly influenced by American movies as they say they are.
And
but
it's-
it also follows them around in their daily lives between these and outside of these. And it's like also has chunks of the movie that are them filming their own short films outside of the short film. So you get to see over time as like they're chatting while doing makeup and he's looking into like his own face that's like burnt and like shredded,
Yeah.
and starting to see this is what he would have looked like as a victim, and like getting a little like confused by it. That's pretty early on, while his friend is saying like, no, we are the bad guy.
That was so interesting.
So there was basically three main characters. Anwar Congo was the main guy. Then his friend Herman Kodo is like the deuteragonist almost, where he's like the secondary protagonist, and he's like his cross-dressing friend who he has sort of a weird relationship with.
Yeah.
Like
They're gay.
So they're not explicitly gay, but they have a very close friendship.
Yeah.
And Herman Kodo is also sort of he loves cross-dressing. There's a lot of scenes where he cross-dresses, and whenever they give him the budget to do whatever he wants, he decides to basically get in drag for the scene.
Yeah.
And so there's Congo, Kodo, and then their third friend who has a prominent role is Adi Zulkadri, who is sort of like the dark woke like villain. Yeah, like so he is one of the fascist like murderers alongside these other two guys. But when he comes into the documentary, he's talking to Congo, and he's like, you realize we are bad people and what we did is wrong and people should be mad at us, right?
Yeah.
And Congo's like, no, we did the right thing, we have to do it. And then Addie's like, no, you need therapy.
Yeah, also he's talking to Congo, and Congo's like, oh yeah, like that propaganda film that we did that showed the communists butchering like our people, that always motivated me because I knew that they were evil people. And his friend would reply like, no, that whole thing like is fake.
Yeah.
We know that's
And
fake.
that's the
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
he's like, Congo, you realize we were the ones doing that.
Yeah.
We made that up.
He said that so many times throughout the movie, where he's like, we made shit up like on behalf of the communists to justify our bad, like the bad things we did to them. And then still in the earlier parts, like, but I'm still happy that I did that though.
Yeah.
Fuck
Yes.
those communists.
It
Like,
was so weird because Congo seems almost like I don't want to bring this out, but he does seem a little stupid.
yeah.
Like Congo seems like kind of an idiot relative to Addy.
Yeah.
Where Addy like sort of has already processed and I think he always knew what he was doing was wrong,
Yeah.
but he did it anyways.
Yeah.
Whereas Congo thought he was doing the right thing and he's realizing it was wrong.
Well, it's one guy has actually confronted everything that he's done, and I think Congo has just never done that. He's perpetually put it off one way or another. Because even at the start, he says, like, I've done my coping shit. I smoke a lot. I drink a lot.
I do
I was
ecstasy.
always partying.
Ecstasy.
And he was saying all of that, and that's not what you do if you're truly confronting your shit. If you confronted something, you don't say, oh yeah, well, I've drank a lot.
Yeah, I just buried
Like,
that shit. Isn't that how we all do it?
On like, to draw like an analogy here, on like the hill of Calvary,
Yeah.
on the cross is the Indonesian Communist Party.
Yeah.
Anwar Kondo, the repentant Nazi.
Yeah.
Ali, the unrepentant Nazi.
Yes, the thief and the other guy. The thief on the cross and the guy who makes fun of Jesus.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was I found the character of Addy really interesting, especially because the documentary filmmakers confront him and they're like, how would you feel about being tried for war crimes? And Addy's take is basically like, war crimes aren't a real thing. He's like, you realize the U.S. made up war crimes.
Yeah.
And because we're allied to the U.S., we will never be punished. And even if they were to take me to The Hague, I would be happy to go.
He's like, I don't feel guilty.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
Yeah. It was insightful actually what he said. The U.S. made that shit up. I was like, wow.
He seemed like
I don't think he ever said specifically the United States, but he's like, the winners made it up.
Yeah,
No,
that's true. That's
he
even true.
specifically says the United States is like, the U.S. did this, they did that, they were never punished. Why would we be punished?
Oh yeah, he specifically said the Americans killed the Indians. Are we gonna punish them for that?
Yeah, he's like, he presents it not like they should be punished, but it would be ridiculous to do so.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a guy that like clearly knows he's done something bad, but also has a good enough grip on how the world works that it just knows. Like
I mean, based on who he is, he seems like he's like kind of gotten more out of life wealth wise. That like he seems like he has some sort of like higher economic position.
He almost seems like he is. So the film takes place almost entirely on the island of Sumatra, rather than Java, which is like the main populated island. But it seems like Adi has sort of escaped Sumatra because he comes back with his family and they spend most of the Adi specific shots just shopping at the mall.
Yeah.
Whereas Kodo and Congo still seem pretty destitute. Like they're living in slums, basically.
Yeah.
Although specifically when we see their houses, they're like seem like they're at least materially at the top of the heap in the slum. I guess as part of like the fact that they are like actual gangsters too. Like we see like a very surreal part of the movie is seeing Herman go around like these shops just extorting like Chinese small business owners for protection money.
Yeah.
Yeah, they literally just document them shaking them down.
Yeah.
Yes, they act like gangsters. Although, so they have Indonesian high-level politicians in this film because basically the main characters were all part of the Pancasila youth movement, right? Which is this paramilitary that did a lot of the killings and still does. As recently as 2019, they were doing killings in West Papua.
Damn.
Right?
Wait, West Papua New Guinea?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the state of West Papua.
So Indonesia has half the island of New Guinea, right?
Oh,
right. So
So it's like functionally a resource colony of Indonesia.
yeah, it's like almost like it's like an internal colony of
Holy
Indonesia.
shit, yeah,
So
I know
when the indigenous people in West Papua
Yeah.
were agitating for independence, they sent in the Pancasila and they just beat up people and killed them.
Wow.
So they're still an active like apparatus of the Indonesian military state, and they had these high level officials for the Indonesian government in the film a lot, just defending Pancasila, defending their past actions, saying it was justified.
And defend it in a way like they call us gangsters. Well, I'm glad to be a gangster. Like not even saying like
Yeah.
oh
A lot of the Pancasila guys were like, gangster etymologically in Indonesian comes from the word for free man.
yeah
And I am a free
they
man. I'm
revel in that,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is
Yeah.
But also,
It's
I was
kind
going
of
to
the
say,
intersection of like the far right organized crime and paramilitary organizations that you see
Everywhere.
everywhere that were originated in the Cold War, like in Italy, like in Turkey.
even pre-Cold War,
Yeah.
the collaboration between the mafia and the fascist party.
Yeah.
They also very much say it out loud, which you see a lot of done, like even in the West, where we pretend to be better than that. Where they're just like, oh, they call us gangsters. We're not gangsters, but even if we were, that's so cool.
Yeah,
And they
I was-
say that openly instead of just being like, oh, we're not gangsters, and then like
Yeah.
just kind of throwing some dog
justifying
whistles
it.
out.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I found so like I feel like other people who committed war crimes to the extent that these people have would like if are being interviewed by it would like justify it in some roundabout way or like maybe deny it even
Yeah.
happened the way it did. These guys are just so self-conscious of what they did. They revel in the atrocity. They
Yeah.
like they essentially sometimes take joy in the reenactment too. It's just like so mind-boggling to
Yeah.
watch. It's wild.
Well, the reason why they take such joy in it is because socially,
They were rewarded.
They were rewarded. It's still backed by the government. I was gonna say they have a high-level Indonesian official come to address the Pancasila youth movement.
The vice president at the time.
And he says to them, "You are not gangsters because gangsters are not backed by the government."
Oh my god! Yeah. What?
But in the same speech, also he says like, so what's wrong with being gangsters? We need more gangsters in Indonesia because if everyone followed the government, we'd be a nation of bureaucrats.
Yes.
That same guy later on in the movie, they have this like maybe one of the most expensive scene they're shooting budget wise. When they set fire to an outdoors area, they have like a bunch of people crying because they reenact him burning down like a
village.
a village or something like that. And everyone is going out acting wise. And after they yell cut, Vice President comes in and is like, I didn't really feel comfortable with the way.
Yeah, the vice president's like, guys,
This
can we,
makes us look
can we
crazy.
make this a little more woke?
Yeah.
Have the show us kill them humanely.
And he said,
yeah.
but don't get me wrong, I still want to exterminate the communists, but
He was like, you guys are making it look like we drink blood.
yeah.
Yeah.
Although I don't think that was the vice president. I think
That was the vice president.
No. It was
Because
a
when they
lower functionary.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
it was like the minister of culture or something.
ministers like sports and culture. So one guy appears directly influencing the narrative, and then the vice president shows up as like a film speech.
Yeah.
And like you both get like into their psychology, and like the guy the Minister of Culture who's like, oh, this makes us look like maniacs.
Yeah.
He then also said, but keep the footage because then it'll show people how serious we are.
Yes.
Yeah.
To intimidate people.
Yeah. He's like, we just don't want this like.
We don't want it to be
insane-
publicly seen. We want it to be like propagandized seen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's another one of my favorite scenes from this film was the trash talking the journalist both behind his back and to his face.
Oh my god.
Oh yeah.
So there's a lot of the killings took place at the office of a far right newspaper in the town they live in, and they would just do it like in the lobby basically.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a journalist character. So Congo and Addie are talking to each other, and Congo's like, "Hey, you remember that journalist?" And Addie's like, "Yeah, I remember him. We used to fucking hate that guy, right?"
Yeah.
And then Congo's like, "He's like stealing valor. He's like taking credit for killing people. He was like a coward bitch, right?
Yeah.
Like he didn't do any of that for us, right?"
Yeah.
And then they're like making fun of him, and then when the documentary crew goes to talk to the journalist is like, "I didn't even know they were killing people. I haven't even heard of this before." And then Addie
He heard of it. But he said to the guys, "You were so sneaky killing all these people.
Yeah.
I never saw what was happening."
And then Addie was like, "Are you stupid?" He's like, "I don't know if it would be even possible to be in the same building and not know what's going
what was
on."
happening.
yeah,
He also
Addie
says,
twice is
like-
I'm not calling you a liar, but
But you
Logically.
are lying.
He says, I'm not calling you a liar, but, and there's like 15 seconds
Yeah.
of silence.
like
As it just becomes increasingly clear that he has no but.
and the journalist guy's face,
Yeah.
they like linger on it for a long time, and the journalist guy's like, you see like, you can only like you almost kind of see his like anger and indignation and like discomfort
Yeah.
as he's like put on the spot.
They follow it up too by just saying like, he's a journalist. So to say that he did see it and decided to not report on it would be like, he can't do that as a journalist, which is why he has to maintain that he didn't actually know what's going on despite actually knowing what's going on.
You also see like when they kind of discuss with this journalist the killings, and they describe them as cruel, and the journalist comes in and he's like, but it wasn't sadistic.
And then Addie's like, "Are you an idiot? Those are synonyms."
And he's like, no, there's a big difference.
Yeah.
Like, that journalist is like the kind of guy who was like a fucking German who lived beside a concentration camp and was just like, I never saw anything.
He has a zone of interest character.
Exactly.
One of the scenes that really hit me that I think I interpreted differently from everyone else here was they have this extended cut where the gangsters like Congo they're making it clear to people that they're doing a short film about how they've killed people. And this one guy starts describing to them how they rounded up and killed his stepfather, who like was the only father that he'd had, and then left his body underneath like trash nearby.
And he's like
his
laughing
house.
the whole time.
Yeah, and he's laughing and saying like, "Oh, I'm not criticizing you, but we should do something about this." And then they look at him and just go, "We don't have the time to do that."
Yeah, we don't have
And
the
then
time
they
to
start
add that to the film.
You specifically asked him, oh, maybe you could depict this in the film, and they're like, no.
Yeah. So they just shut that down completely.
Yeah.
Like he's poured his heart out to them. And then they go and they do a killing reenactment on him. And I think that this is the first time where we like see someone actually break down, because we see him trying to act before and he sucks at it. Like it is what it
And the
is.
guy
He's
whose
not
dad
an
is
actor.
killed then like actually breaks down.
Yeah.
Presumably because he's like thinking about like
Yeah.
his dead fucking dad.
Yeah, and he's also like, I'm convinced that he's starting to doubt whether or not he's getting killed in that moment. Like they've built up a scene to kill him because they're telling him like, he starts panicking, there's snot coming out of his nose and shit, like he's clearly broken down. And they're just like, here, have a sip of water. And they start going, don't worry, it's not poison. And he can't drink the water, even though they're like, oh yeah, don't worry about it, it's just water. And he's not doing it, despite the fact that I'm sure he wants to.
I don't think he thought his life was actually in danger. I thought he was like Congo is later in the film, where they simulate killing him, and he's like, it was very panic-inducing in the moment.
Yeah.
He didn't think he was in real danger, but it's still like really stressful and intense.
And you see also like Congo kind of like refusing to drink any water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was just like both very like you're play acting murder.
Yeah.
And also this guy was like just also recently like basically spoke about like some like horrendous trauma in his childhood.
Yeah, I think that was a bigger influence on him breaking down.
Yeah.
Because he like specifically talks about, and this is something that happened to the families of all murdered communists and suspected communists in Indonesia, is that they were like basically shut off from public life. Like this guy specifically said he was like banned from going to school or getting a job. He had to teach himself how to read later in life.
Yeah.
And this was like common for like many families of victims.
Yeah, and like one of the things that caught me for this was it shows him breaking down, and they say like they're doing the killing part, and then the camera just cuts away halfway through it, and it just lingers on like Congo moving one of the cameras around,
Yeah.
and like just shows surrounding stuff. And I fully thought that they were going to reveal that they'd like accidentally killed the guy by choking him out with the wire, where they were supposed to be pretending, but like it didn't really matter and they'd accidentally killed him. And like I fully thought that that might have been coming.
Yeah. The
yeah.
wire thing was, every time they did that, like they actually put a wire around someone's neck and then would actually like start pulling. Like all it takes is for you to like trip and fall backwards, for you to like accidentally like almost kill someone.
Yeah, and their hands were tied behind their back, like some of them were tied, some of them were not.
Yeah.
But like even if your hands are not tied, you probably start to realize that if they were to actually pull, you're just dead. Like there is nothing that you can do to prevent your death in that scenario.
Yeah. Which
has got to be like horrifying.
Oh, one thing I forgot about was Addy. His like worry that the killings were wrong, but the documentary shouldn't happen because it will cause people to reassess Indonesian history. Mm-hmm. Where he's like, we should just forget this ever happened, basically.
Yeah, because I think in the context of it is that they were saying like sometimes the truth isn't good.
Yeah,
like we should just like hide the truth.
Yeah,
which is I feel like a lot of people who do this kind of thing low key think that. Yeah, but. This was a wild watch.
The oddly prophetic misspeak where they said if the documentary gets out, people might do a full 360 on their interpretation of history, trying to mean that people will start to think that they are the evil ones. But the documentary did get out, and it was revealed all the shit that happened. And then people did a full 360, and everything has continued on the exact same way it was going beforehand, without any real hiccups.
Yeah, that was a great line where he's like, "Oh, cause a 180, no, a 360." And he's like accidentally correct.
Oh man.
I think still the dominant narrative of like killing these communists was good is still like very much the norm in Indonesia, and still especially among the state. Like they have this big crazy museum in the middle of Jakarta about like these generals that supposedly the communists killed, which was the trigger for launching this anti-communist massacre, as like as a propaganda building to like why you should hate the communists and why it was good to kill them.
Yeah, and they still like what was the thing where it's like the communists showed up in the night and like backstabbed all of the like generals and all of that,
and drank their blood and stuff like that.
And like it even says like Suharto got a report and he knew that was not true, went out, reported it anyways, it got out that it was not true, and they just like I think killed those people, right? That like started saying this shit.
Yeah, or arrested them or something.
And then like it doesn't matter, and they're still just repeating it. The United States has also repeated it despite knowing it's not true. Like it does not matter. Yeah. Which is why, what's the guy's name again that says like it doesn't matter?
Addy?
Yeah, Addy. This is why like he absolutely knows everything that's going on. That guy is incredibly smart in his lane.
Yeah.
Of just saying like, our war crimes don't matter. It's good for, America. We will never get in trouble.
Yeah.
As long as America is repeating our lies, which they will because our lies help their narrative, we're fine. And it turns out they're fine.
Yeah.
I don't think there will be any accountability until the current Indonesian regime, which has been in power for like 50 years, is gone.
Yeah. So Suharto, his goons are still like in power, like directly. The people who were one step under him are now in power, and people are still protesting against them, and they're still just like mass arresting people and stuff like that.
Yeah.
As of the last I saw of this was 2 days ago, which means still today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We read, or the three of us read a book called The Jakarta Method. I forget who wrote it.
Vincent Bevins.
Vincent Bevins. Which sets watching the movie actually kind of made me realize, because I thought the Jakarta Method was the CIA's operation in Indonesia and in Jakarta, and how like they supported the rise of Suharto. But like after watching the movie, I realized like the Jakarta Method is successful because like I don't know if there's been 50 years of just like straight anti-communist like governing for a country, like anyone, like there's news shows, they have this news show that's just like the audience is filled with the Pancasila youth people, and the reporter is just like, oh yeah, you killed communists, right? That was amazing, right? Like, oh, thank you so much for killing these communists for us. Like it was so mind-boggling to watch. Like the whole, at least the state and the media apparatus like has fallen deeply into that. It seems like you can't dig yourself out without like a significant revolution or something happening.
It's a complete and utter dominant victory of the fascists.
Yeah.
Speaking of, there is a great like segment of the film where Herman is running to be basically a member of parliament for what is essentially a fascist party.
Yeah.
Like their main ideology is corporatism, like Mussolini style economics.
It's called, what's the name of it called?
It was like the Businessmen and Workers Party.
Yeah.
If only the government could force business owners and workers to be on the same page.
Yeah, so he's like going around, and like Congo's like he's kind of cooked.
Yeah.
Like he's like I love Herman, but he is not rich enough to hand out enough bribes to win this election.
Yeah.
And he's like, even rich people have a hard time winning because they have to pay so many bribes.
Yeah.
Because like there's like a scene when Herman's going around to him, and or like people when he's like handing out like business cards. He's like, "Hey, vote for me." One woman says to him, "Was like, where's my bonus?"
Yeah, where's my $200? Yeah.
4 other guys came here with money, and you're giving me a card. What the fuck? Yeah. There's a shirtless guy who gets a card.
He's like, "Do you have a campaign shirt?"
You have a free shirt.
Oh, the shirtless guy asking for campaign shirts. That was
my
so
God.
funny.
Yeah.
That might have been one of the like.
Oh man.
That might be one of the
guy-
funniest moments I've ever seen.
Yeah, that guy was just cold at the time. Yeah, he's like, "You got a shirt."
Well, here, while we're talking about fascism, aka the ideology where under severe financial strain, a country rallies around small business and nationalism, and forcing business owners and workers to work together in the ideas of the country. Why don't we bring it back to Canada?
I like this. I like this. Yeah, that was a sick.
Carney Hitlerism.
Yes.
Wait.
yes.
Oh no.
So Carney has slowly but surely, being the neoliberal he is, become Poilievre. One policy at a time, he has slowly arrived at being a full-blown conservative, and liberals still love him because he's just a smart guy who loves small business, I guess.
They love aesthetics of politics.
They know that they can rally around nationalism to bring this country to a better place without ever addressing class conflict, because the government can take care of that for them, as we know from the history of Trudeau's strike breaking over the last few years.
Yeah.
But just the brief background for Mark Carney is everyone's like, oh, he solved 2008. In 2008, the whole solution was like, why don't we just let people take on a ton of extra debt? Which does work because it effectively gives people access to a bunch of extra money, which is an economic stimulus. And like, yeah, it can patch something up briefly. But then what happens when you just get more and more debt over time? Eventually this shit will come around. Carney believes in markets and guiding them slightly. And a lot of his ideology is just by saying if you give people information and let people have all of the information, then the markets will work towards the better thing because that's what the information will do. Like, people who are informed on climate change will make market decisions not according to pure profitability, but according to what they know. Like, climate change is bad.
Like, how stupid you have to be.
Yeah.
Like what that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Like, he is literally, in the purest sense of the term, a liberal idealist.
Yes.
Not as in the opposite of a pragmatist, but someone who literally believes ideas determine the course of history and economy.
Yeah. He
even-
is not your savior.
Yeah.
Even the idea that, like, because he talks a lot about climate and stuff. Like, who is, like, how do we know about what we know on the, like, how bad the climate is? It was from the fucking oil industries, and they did the research like a decade before we actually knew anything, and they knew it was gonna suck, and they're like, fuck it, for the bag.
When they learned that the world was ending, the reaction was like, no one can learn the world is ending.
Yeah.
Carney just abandoning the carbon tax as soon as it's politically convenient for the Liberal Party.
Which is also basically like, I think
it was his idea.
Yeah,
he was
of all,
a big pusher.
Oh my god, yeah.
he was a big carbon tax advocate, but also the carbon tax is like a net rebate to like 99% of people.
Yeah.
Where it's basically just a very convoluted UBI scheme.
It's the most astroturfed the anti-carbon tax shit was the most astroturfed conservative thing. Where they got like the fucking Canadian oil industry to paid them to basically say that be anti-carbon tax, but despite the fact that like realistically no fucking like maybe not no, but pretty much every Canadian who is like a normal working person has not been shafted by this whatsoever.
Yeah.
And then they have made money off of it.
Yeah. And then they say, oh, well, the carbon taxes downstream raise costs through like grocery prices.
Yeah, buddy.
Source TM.
Okay, it's fucking the carbon tax as well is here because instead of coming up with real solutions or just banning bad activity, the conservatives would not get on board with that. And they said we should do a carbon tax instead of just banning shit because we need markets to be the solution instead of actually doing something. The carbon tax is the conservative idea. And then we did that because we're like, oh, at least we can work with the conservatives for this solution. And then, wouldn't you know, the second you caved to the conservatives, they abandoned it and shifted farther right.
Yeah. It's the Obamacare model of the Overton window shift.
Yeah.
Where the Democrats, quote, wanted, but not really, universal health care. They negotiate it down to Obamacare to get it passed. The Republicans kill it anyways, and now nothing has happened. So the left-wing position is we need to not marketize our way out of climate change. The conservative position is the compromise with the conservatives is the carbon tax. Now the conservatives kill it, and now we've done nothing, which is what the conservatives wanted to do the whole time.
Yeah. So if Carney is purely an economist, right? Like, that's his thing. And everyone's like, oh, we need an economist who knows how to handle this shit-ass economy. Because everyone hates this shit-ass economy.
Yeah.
You want to know what happened the last time? Stephen Harper was an economist who could handle the economy. And now we have Stephen Harper, but he's a liberal. The liberals now love Stephen Harper, effectively.
Yeah.
He will not solve the problems. So what has he done? Poilievre said we need to axe the tax for the carbon tax. And Carney has axed the tax. Poilievre said we need to axe the tax on buying homes, and he did first builds. Carney came out and said, oh, okay, we will axe the tax on the first purchase of a home. And then Poilievre said we need to get rid of the CBC. And I don't think we've read into this all the way, but Carney is now reforming the CBC. Poilievre said, let's scrap the EV rebate. Carney is now scrapping the EV rebate. All the conservatives hated the capital gains tax. Carney is now getting rid of the progressive capital gains tax that does reduce inequality. I claimed it probably wouldn't do much at first, but, more shit came out. It actually works to a degree. And to the degree that you're still keeping capitalism.
Yeah.
What'll it be, Western man?
Now,
reform or revolution?
Yeah.
And now, all the liberals are like all in on all of these oil pipelines and things too. We now have the Liberal Party has just shifted into becoming a full-blown conservative party.
I mean,
and the conservative,
they always were.
The Conservative Party is now lost. Alright? They tried to go like neutral, and then they were like, oh, okay, what if we do a really nice kind of progressive conservative type guy? Aaron O'Toole.
Yeah.
And then
Who's a
they
real
failed
tool.
again. And then they've gone farther right with Poilievre, and now they've failed again. Because the Conservative Party is fucked because the Liberals are just the same thing.
Yeah.
And so, when it comes to Carney versus Poilievre, the country is faced with one of the oldest choices of the last 50 years. Entitlement reform or common sense revolution.
Look, man, unfortunately, no one's thought about being socially progressive and fiscally conservative.
Yeah. Right, that is actually, I don't know if we have this budgeted in the schedule, but Abacus Data did a poll of Canadians.
Bring out the fucking graph.
The Abacus Data did a poll of Canadians where they basically...
if you will consult the graph,
they
nothing ever
partition
happens.
like politics into like sort of 25 squares, 5 by 5 on a 2D grid, and they poll Canadians on how economically and socially progressive they are, and the results will shock you. So I feel like for the past 10 years we've been hearing endlessly about the mythic underserved, socially progressive but economically conservative voter.
Right.
And this mythic voter has been targeted by just an absolute deluge of new centrist parties in the mold of Andrew Yang's, what is it, the Forward Party or whatever?
Yeah, the Forward. We got
Party.
like our 3 arrows shit. We
Yeah.
have our like
The centrist party.
Yeah, it's not like left versus right. It's top versus bottom.
Yeah. So this idea of being
the
like
third position party.
yeah, these parties all believe the same thing basically, which is to eliminate the deficit but be not homophobic. Right?
Right,
So the thing is, though, according to this Abacus Data poll, of the 4 major groups, economic and cultural progressives, economic progressives and cultural conservatives, economic and cultural conservatives, and then this mythic socially progressive, economically conservative voter, this socially progressive, economically conservative voter does not exist.
Yeah.
It is by far the smallest group. Frankly, the most overrepresented group possibly in the history of electoralism.
So
Yeah.
economic and cultural progressives are about 24% of Canadians.
Yeah.
Economic progressives, culturally conservatives are about 21%.
Yes.
So that is like 20
That's
to 25% for economically progressive.
That's 45%
yeah.
economically progressive, and then if you add people
If you-
who have basically no social opinion but are economically progressive, it is a majority of the population.
Right.
Yeah, and then economically and culturally conservatives are 17%, and then culturally progressive, economically conservative is 6%.
Yes.
Which means not only is being socially progressive infinitely more popular than being economically conservative, but like that blend is almost no one. The
Yeah.
fact that you can have 6% in any one category is like a statistical rounding error.
Yeah.
practically. Like
Yes.
usually no matter what opinion it is, you'll hit like 15% just because someone will fill out the data wrong.
Yeah. It's so there's 25 squares on this grid. The 4 squares that are closest to this corner of economic conservative and cultural progressive have in total 6%, which is lower than like half the other squares on the graph individually.
Yeah.
Right? Like there are more people who are 1 tick to the left socially out of 5, but totally economically progressive than there are of this entire movement
Yeah.
of social progressive and economic conservative.
So yeah, of the 4 boxes, one of them is 3%, and 3 other boxes are 1% each.
Yeah.
Which is like nothing. In no other quadrant, including the like centrist area, no one else gets 1%. For this one, almost the entire thing is 1%.
It's actually crazy that basically the most representative politics Canada could have while maintaining parliamentarianism would be 2 social democratic parties arguing about trans women in sports. That would it would just be like 2 parties that like want to radically expand the welfare state,
Yeah.
but also one of them is transphobic and the other
is
isn't.
not.
Yeah.
And this includes people that have no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Where they're like, oh, climate change is bad. We should do something about it, but not really do something about it. So we should do a carbon tax, but I want lower taxes on everything, and we shouldn't add any new taxes, but also we should do something about climate change. These are the opinions that are included in this, because it's getting everyone's opinions. And frankly, that's a pretty popular opinion. And even through opinions like that, you can't get a square worth more than 1% in this category.
Yeah, like this movement does not exist, and yet it is the most pandered to movement possibly in political history in this country.
The socially progressive, economically conservative movement is purely just like Nazis who are trying to not scare women away.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. If you hear someone in real life say, I'm socially progressive but economically conservative, just say you're lying and then walk away.
Like, I can see right through that shit. You either don't know enough about anything to have a real opinion, so you say that because you think it gets you out of situations, or you're probably a Nazi.
Yeah.
That is what it is.
Yeah.
I'll call a spade a spade.
Yeah, so anyways, that was a tangent about polling.
Yeah. We got the Carney plagiarism scandal we could do.
Yes, so this is mostly the Carney episode, to be frank. But the National Post, in a Hail Mary move, their March surprise, I guess, is to release like a document claiming that not Poilievre, Carney plagiarized significant portions of his doctoral thesis. Now, I didn't do a humanities thesis, so the standards might be a bit different there, but he, like, reviewing their claims against him, this seems like a total nothing burger.
Yeah, a lot of these people are so academically uninclined that they'll take two claims that are fundamentally completely different claims, but since all the words but two are the same, they'll say, oh, this is the same, and therefore, what I want to say, plagiarized. And it's literally fundamentally different claims.
Who cares about fucking plagiarism? I don't give a fuck about plagiarism. Like, it's such a stupid, like...
Meyer, his doctoral supervisor at Oxford, said, quote, "It is typical that overlapping language appears," unquote, when sources are, quote, "frequently referenced in an academic text." For example, over the course of this more than 300-page thesis, the Michael Porter book is cited dozens of times. Within his thesis, Mark acknowledged, cited, scrutinized, and expanded on this piece. So he quotes from this and doesn't cite it every time, which is one of their premier examples of him plagiarizing, basically. He repeats segments from this text, but also he meaningfully transforms it basically every time. Yeah. Where he's citing this, he's quoting the text, but he is changing the claim to be like, this is the actual case.
Yeah. There's one thing where it goes from, he says this is a continuous model.
Yeah.
And they go back and say it's plagiarizing this, which is just a guy saying this is a limited model.
So here's the specific thing. I went back and found it. So the screenshot from the article is of this author, Shin, writing, quote, "The setting for the game is a pure exchange economy with a finite number of states," unquote. Carney wrote, the setting for the game is a pure exchange economy with a continuous number of states, unquote. Yeah. And then the National Post says he did not cite his source.
Which is also...
Wait, those are totally different.
So finite or discrete and continuous are the opposite.
Yeah, it sounds like he's arguing against the point.
So he wrote the exact same sentence, but with one single word. But that was the most important word in the sentence, which changing it changed the entire meaning of the sentence.
Yeah. But also, like, there are only a certain number of ways you can write a sentence that is academically acceptable.
Yeah.
That makes a similar claim.
Yeah. They're really, like, they're reaching so hard. Like, when you send, like, I don't know, an intern to go read the political candidate's fucking thesis essay and make sure he cited every source. Like, there was no other scandal they could think of other than the citing your sources shit. Is that what they got President Gay for also? The Harvard professor? The Harvard...
He plagiarized?
It was plagiarized, but like every academic pretty much said, we don't really care.
Yeah. Like,
and then it still became a big deal.
Because specifically they went after her with the plagiarism stuff because she wasn't she wasn't cracking down on pro-Palestinian students enough to the satisfaction of like billionaires in like Harvard donors who were like pro-Israel.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's all fake. It's all fucking fake. Also, economics solved 200 years ago.
Yeah.
All right. As Bennett has said.
Let me turn you. Let's let Bennett turn you on to the real economics text.
Yeah. So economics as a science is like when if Einstein published general and then special relativity, but then they're like, actually, we need to figure out a way to maintain Newton's model.
Yeah.
They then spent 100 years trying and failing to maintain Newton's model instead of developing on the things brought forward by Einstein.
Yeah. And it's like, also, it's fucking economic speak.
Yeah.
I've read like dozens of economics books at this point. I don't know how many everyone around the table has. I know Bennett's like put a number on me, so like it's
I don't read fake science. I don't
and like there's you hear the same concepts, topics and stuff like that all the time. And it's coming at it from slightly different angles. Everyone knows these things, you know? Like, yeah, it's broadly cited, but a lot of the time you're just getting between points. You're on the topic of economics and you're working through that. And we're getting sentences like that are like just discussion between points instead of the hard data points. And people are saying, where's your source? I don't care. One, it's fake.
Yeah.
All right. Two, it's wrong already. And like, three, this is not the part that really truly requires the source.
Yeah.
This is the question period.
I think that's all we really can say about like this freaking nothing plagiarism scandal that I think is like, it's just a Hail Mary from a very desperate party who's like flailing in the polls, like liberal majority now predicted.
Yes, liberal majority like 99% or something.
Yeah.
It's like, it's odd of outcome. LPC majority 338 predicts 89% chance. LPC plurality 11% chance.
Yeah.
So
the conservatives just keep fucking stumbling. Even
if the
fucking Doug Ford is endorsing Carney.
That's because Doug Ford, as I've said in previous episodes, is like an incredibly talented politician.
Yeah.
So he knows immediately where the wind is blowing. He immediately is like abandoning Poilievre as soon as there was the slightest hint that he was going to lose. He's like, I'm not hitching my wagon to this loser.
Yeah.
And even, like, frankly, a conservative winning the federal election is not good for the Ontario PCs.
Yeah.
Like, he would rather Carney win.
Because then people will realize, like, people will kind of finally have to start acknowledging why things are bad in this province.
Yeah.
And it's not because of whoever's in like 22 Sussex Drive or where the fuck they are now.
Yeah.
And like Rideau Cottage.
Yeah.
So Doug Ford was like hanging out with Carney. They asked questions about it, and Carney just once again just went to like a media person, was like, "You're lying and you're not telling the truth," which is he's at first I think people were into it, but now people are just not into it. You can only run that racket for so long unless you're like a real hype man, which Poilievre is just not. Poilievre's podiums have been fucking funny.
Yeah.
We keep sending these to each other. We can go through some of them.
Yeah, do it.
We have workers first, and then in the second line, for a change, which is supposed to be going after the Liberals for not putting workers first. But it sounds like Poilievre has been forgetting to put workers first and has just decided to swap it up.
Also,
workers, those guys.
This is just to give you a bit of an insight into my own family psychology, but I think a few days ago, Poilievre had like a rally at like some sort of like factory where the slogan was "Boots, not suits."
Yeah.
And my dad, who isn't an office worker, saw that slogan and got so pissed off that he's like, "Now I'm an undecided."
Wait.
Like, your dad is like hard right.
Wait,
basically.
what?
Yeah.
No,
Oh my, yeah, just going after Carney's clothes has always been an L, because they've gone over Carney's boots.
Oh,
and it was like,
that's
oh,
what
he's
that's
wearing
about.
like $300 shoes. My brother, shoes are just $300 if you want decent shoes.
Yeah.
Like,
If you want like actual decent work shoes that won't like shatter the moment you drop something on your foot, you need to like spend a lot of money.
yeah.
Things are expensive, man.
Yeah, the shoes that I wear every day are $25. All right? They're garbage. My work boots, the only boots that fit me were like $350. That's the best, like that's all I had. That was the only choice I had between like 3 stores. That just is what it is. Bennett, you liked this one. Stop the crimes, and on the second line, stop all the crimes.
That's a good one because it sort of plays into a folksy image where instead of using the actual French word, they use sort of like the joual word, where it's just the English word conjugated like an ER verb,
Yeah.
which is like a classic Quebecism, but it seems so phony when a guy as unauthentic as Poilievre uses it.
Like the only thing Frenchy about him is his name.
Yeah.
For a long time, I was fooled into thinking he was a francophone before I really knew anything about this guy.
I mean, he does live in Ottawa.
Yeah, but he's from Alberta.
Yeah.
Like, the only thing francophone about him is that he was adopted by, like, 2 French Canadians living in, like,
And he hates his parents.
What was the
Well, yeah,
candidate?
because his dad's gay.
Yeah.
Okay, we got on that. What was the candidate whose last name was Anand?
Anita Anand.
No. Oh, was there another one? There was one of them who was like, I disagree that we have to learn how to speak French to run as a liberal.
I don't remember that.
But he was also in Ottawa.
Yeah.
I think everyone who works in Ottawa gets a chance to get free French lessons. And he just said, nah, I would rather, like...
I'd rather die.
I'd rather die.
I'd rather refuse some, like, self-enrichment.
Yeah.
I'd rather, like, deny the extremely easy opportunity to improve myself and gain something more out of life.
Yeah.
So this one, I'm just gonna expose my own willful ignorance, kind of like not learning French. The fucking sign that looked like it was poorly photoshopped on that just said TFSA top up. I do not know what this fucking means. What do you mean TFSA top up?
I assume this means extending the threshold, like the max. You know what a TFSA is,
Yeah,
right?
they'll let you, like,
I assume he means raise the cap on how much you can contribute.
Yeah, but like the thing is that as a slogan, like you can tell they're all out of ideas.
Yeah, that is so funny.
Because when I think of topping something up, I think of filling it up. So it sounds like he's just saying, "Oh yeah, we'll give everyone like
money.
200 for the TFSA only."
That's what it comes across to.
As the party not in government, we will do a Ford style bribe.
So I don't even know what that means, but if you're taking something that I can't decode and putting it on your podium, holy hell, kid.
Yeah.
Like that is bad. And then I think the last one I'm going to do, which is my favorite, axe the sales, and then on the second line, tax on homes.
This was Poilievre's. I think we talked about this in a previous episode, but Poilievre's solution to the housing crisis is to remove GST on home purchases. Or maybe I just texted the group chat about this, where I'm like, yeah, the 13% addition, that was the problem. Not the 7 million% increase in prices.
The thing that if you remove will increase like the ability for purchasing even more, thus spiking prices.
So we spend 45% of our income on rent as a country or something like that. Why don't we copy all of the moves of the country that spends 65% of its country's income on rent? Britain. I'm sure that will help. They removed the tax on homes because they said it would incentivize more purchasing and building, and higher home prices is better for builders, so they'll build more. Did not work.
No.
We're all in on the same thing. I keep saying that. And then we have the website, which they fixed it now. Last week it was still asking for donations under the quote, "send a message to Trudeau," which not only Trudeau's not there anymore, but also it sounds like it's pro Trudeau. It's like donate and you can like tell Trudeau good job.
They have been trying and failing to connect Carney to Trudeau's unpopularity. There's a billboard near Wilson or Yorkdale or something that's like it's like Poilievre versus Trudeau and Carney is how it frames the election.
It's not working.
That's not working. Yeah.
Which is funny because fundamentally Carney keeps pulling back in the rats who fled Trudeau's sinking ship. Sean Fraser's back now, and all like a lot of the
Christian Freeland's in, right?
She's in, but on a reduced position. She's like some like make work job in the cabinet.
Transport minister.
Yeah, which is like a fake job. A fake job for a country that doesn't do anything in transport anymore.
Chrystia Freeland might be able to get the trains to run on time.
It's the wrong type of fashion.
Okay, so here's my like kind of serious political analysis on this. Just before Trudeau stepped down, they announced the high-speed rail stuff is finally getting off the ground. And he's appointing someone from like who is Trudeau's second hand, who probably had a very like a decently sized role in putting this together. So this is at least to me some sort of signal that he wants this to actually can go forward.
I'm bearish on Freeland because her resignation letter to Trudeau was literally like, you weren't neoliberal enough for me.
Yeah.
So I am skeptical on her doing anything with infrastructure.
We already know how the infrastructure bill is going to go. It's going to be a public-private partnership, and what they're going to do is say it's going to be a government-led public-private partnership where we will get private companies to build it and then also get a private operator to run and maintain the train. Because we've already seen it, right? And effectively what this is doing is privatizing our rail, which is following the steps of a country renowned for how good their rail is right now, Britain. Why are we copying all of Britain's moves 40 years ago? The country is a garbage patch in the ocean. Anyways, we got a flyer here for the Conservatives before we move on just a little bit. This was left in the doors to
a neighbor's.
to a neighbor's house, and it says our common sense revolution. So our common sense conservative plan: axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, stop the crime.
Wait, did they say common sense revolution?
No, they didn't. I inserted that. As
I was like, are they
reusing
reusing old phrases?
Yeah, common sense, let's bring it home. I mean, the Poilievre campaign has recently readopted common sense. I mean, common sense is like something conservatives love to bandy about.
I mean, that was like Mike Harris's big thing.
I was going to say, the original common sense revolution privatized the 407 to disastrous effect. Fucking destroyed the province for 20 years, basically.
Yeah.
Like,
burden municipalities with a shit ton of responsibilities that they do not have the finances to maintain.
And also subordinated every downtown and major city to suburbanite and rural Nazis.
Yeah.
Who now control every city council in the province because of Mike Harris's amalgamations.
But yeah, the Conservatives have really been fumbling the bag at every opportunity. They even tried going after Carney about being a slogans-only kind of guy. But all the Conservatives have had for like the last year and a half is just repeating the same 4 or 5 slogans without elaborating because they can't, because they know people will hate it.
My brother and McDonald, your entire campaign up until this point has been sloganeering.
Yeah. So
John A. McDonald.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, they if the Conservatives want to win, they're going to have to change their strategy because it's very clearly not working. It was only working on extraordinarily shaky grounds that got shaken up.
This election, though, has been sort of the inverse. I think, Spencer, you said this. Or maybe it was Liam who said this. The fact that we are basically transitioning from Obama-Trudeau, who got elected basically stealing an NDP platform that he then didn't implement.
Yeah.
And now we are transitioning to Carney Biden, who is going to win off of stealing the conservative campaign that he probably actually will implement. Because of the Liberal Party can only make things worse.
They can only slow down things getting worse.
Yeah, that was something I've noticed. Like, for a while, I thought we were going to have to follow, like, the folksy, allegedly iron law of Canadian politics, that we were being downstream from American politics by 10 years. But it seems that we're just skipping our Trump phase and going right to Biden.
Which is, I think that's not the worst thing.
But after Biden, there is Trump too.
That is true.
Yeah.
So who knows what it's going to be like another 4 years.
I do think that we're kind of not skipping our
Weeks and
Trump
decades.
phase because it's all anyone cares about and talks about and does. It's the news every day. I think it's not that we're skipping the Trump phase. I think it's like everyone's already got their fill. They don't need it.
Yeah, people are already tired of it.
Yeah.
It's like, they're satisfied. Well, I guess I'll just do a quick touch on Oscar-winning film No Other Land. That we discussed briefly in, I think, our last episode.
Yeah, which I will still say, like, despite what I said last episode, I think you should still see if you want to get an idea of what life is like in the West Bank for Palestinians.
Yeah, so the Palestinian director of it, or one of the Palestinian directors, was beaten by Israeli settlers and then kidnapped and disappeared by the IDF for a few days upon return. And every single media institution essentially just said, oh, it's because he might have been throwing rocks or something like that. Now,
Which it's a crime in the West Bank if you're a Palestinian to throw a rock.
Yeah.
And it just shows a double standard. They have they have that same
Video
guy.
evidence.
They have video evidence of settlers throwing rocks at the Palestinians, and that's actually the lower end of the violence. If the settler doesn't have a gun on them, then they'll throw rocks. But yeah.
And the media all fell in line instantly, and I have no clue how. Immediately, like, the Academy mentioned the incident without mentioning the name of the producer.
Cause I remember
I thought it was Basil Adra.
Basil Adra is it's one of 4 directors. It's 2 Israelis and 2 Palestinians. Basil Adra.
Hamdan Bilal was the one who was news article yesterday. Academy apologizes for not naming No Other Land director amid outcry from more than 700 voters.
Yeah.
Oh my.
They just apologized.
No, it's because they wrote an article about the incident, but
yesterday.
never said his name or anything like that.
Right.
So everyone fell in line instantly on, like, Palestinians not having full human rights or autonomy or anything like that.
That guy has an interesting scene in the movie where the Israeli, one of the co-directors, the Israeli guy, after they film one of the people in the village getting shot by the IDF, he, like, starts actually, like, berating the Israeli guy. He says, like, this could be one of your cousins, this could be one of your friends, you know, how the fuck do you think we can, like, let you walk with us and stuff, and then still be a part of this? And then it was actually an interesting thing, but then another guy calls me and says, Hamdan, what are you doing? He's like, we're just debating. He's like, yo, come and help us fix this shit and stop the debating. But it's like, no one likes debate bros anywhere.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to mention that one to keep on it.
So, like,
there's not much I can do for this. I figure I just have to bring it up.
Who the fuck knows when, like, you know, the Zionist entity is going to kidnap him again.
Yeah.
Because even with the critiques that movie has, it's put a target on the filmmakers' backs, according to the people who live there.
But like, if like he wasn't an Oscar-winning director,
right,
he probably would still be in detention.
Yeah. An Oscar-winning 100%. Director, Palestinian, can get beaten and kidnapped, and the media will still blame him for it, even when he did nothing wrong. That pretty well encompasses 90% of the conflict. If it can happen to someone like that who was just that big on the global stage, that shows what can happen to anyone else. So are we good to wrap up there?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, later, y'all. Thanks for listening.
See ya.
Free Palestine again.
Free Palestine.